Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Lockdown Conversations, episode six, or episode five. Sorry, I was I'm one ahead of myself there. Lovely to be online and see you all this evening again. We've had a fantastic 4 weeks gone by, and I'm sure this week will be no different. Uh, just to say to you, wherever you're from, can you put a little comment there in the comments? What festival or what group you're coming in from tonight, or what part of the country you're coming in from tonight, and we will catch up with you all later on. Tonight, it's my great pleasure to welcome from all the way from Buchblei in Germany, our first outside the island of Ireland conversations, ADA adjudicator and director, Paula Dempsey. Paula, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Paddy. It's great to be here. Great to talk to you, see your face.
These lockdown conversations have become a bit of a hit over the last 5 weeks, and on a cold night like tonight, I'm sure it's going to be no different.
I hope I don't let you down. I've been watching the last 4 weeks and they've been great.
You have lots of snow over there in Germany.
Yeah, started on Tuesday and it's been snowing since, but it's not really as heavy as it has been in other years up till now, because sometimes it starts in October, November, but yeah, it started Tuesday. White Christmas, hopefully. I think it'll make a difference.
Yeah, Germany's the same as ourselves. I don't think it'll make much of a difference with restrictions and everything the way they are and the way COVID is. So, yeah. How did Paula Dempsey catch the bug of drama?
It started a long time ago. I think I was about 8. I was in my first play. I played Doc in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I had a beard and glasses and made out of cotton wool and a wire coat hanger, I believe. And I had one line, and that line was, "Oh no, she's dead." So that was my first foray into it. And then when I went into secondary school in England, it was part of the curriculum. So I suppose that's when I really got the bug. I loved it. I loved the workshops and all of that went with it. And then when I was 14, I left England and moved to Ireland with my parents, not Mellick, where my parents are from. And I didn't do anything for a number of years. One, because we had a family business, and then also it wasn't available in schools as it is now, and so on. But when I was about 23, I was asked would I be interested in joining the Mount Mellick Drama Group, which were then known as Mount Mellick Pioneer Drama Group, because they were founded by pioneers. So I went along, and I was a young mother, so I said, I don't really have too much time. So they looked at me a bit, what you're doing here then? But anyway, I stayed there and I had a great time. And about 2 years after joining them, for those 2 years, I worked backstage, painting sets, doing prompting, whatever it was called on. But I had an even stronger accent than I have now. And so there was no chance of them in putting me in an Irish play with this accent. So eventually they decided to do an English farce. I think it was called Look No Hands, and it was by John Carpenter and Michael Pertwee. And I played the part of a very English woman who was, she worked for a motor industry, but farce, of course, has these underlying misconceptions of who people are. And it was about a guy living a double life, and it's played by Paula O'Toole. And the part I was playing, her name was Leslie Tregunter Jones. And she says, "Just call me Les." And of course, he thinks she's dressed up. He thinks she's a man pretending to be a woman. So I was cast in my first part as a very butch, heavily set woman. And I wore a lovely checked shirt and corduroy skirt, and went in and had this very kind of butch attitude, which convinced him that I was not a woman at all. I was a man. And it was very fast-moving as far as, but there was one really funny moment, and I'll never forget. And Paula O'Toole, who played the part of Peter Fisher, he's like Mount Mellick's John Cleese. And if you've been to Mount Mellick, you've met Paula. He helps with the lights, he's behind stage. He's all of that. But he was also a lovely, lovely actor with fast. And he had very long legs, very tall and thin, and very big hands. And at one point in the play, he has to come up to me and put his hand on my boobs, squeeze it, and say, "They look really real." Every time I saw this big hand coming towards me, I'd get a fit of giggling. And it went on for weeks. I thought we're never going to be able to form this scene. And it's like if you've watched Dirty Dancing, you know the scene where she's dancing, he's putting his hand down, and every time he does it, she starts to laugh. That was sexy and romantic, and this wasn't. That was my first foray into Mount Mellick's plays. And the next thing I did with them was a one-act called the Jana Years, or the Jana Years, some people say. And I was cast as Holly, who is described as a model who works for the Pretty and Plump model agency. So I managed to stay with them, even though they kept giving me these parts. And I have to say, it was the best fun I had in years. And all my time was with Mount Mellick. And they gave me, of course, my first start as an adjudicator as well. So yeah, great times, great memories.
And did Mount Mellick do the circuit then? Back then?
They did with the one acts. They didn't with the three acts because there wasn't enough people between the festival and. But we used to put on a 3-act. There used to be a Laois drama festival, so there used to be about 15 groups in Laois at that time. And we used to compete then. But the adjudicator who was adjudicated would travel around to all of the halls rather than the groups traveling to all of the halls. So we did that, but we only ever travelled on the circuit with one act, and we were called the Mount Mellick Pioneer Drama Group. And it was amazing. Wherever we went, nobody wanted to be our minder. And we realised afterwards, where somebody at one festival told us the truth was that, the crack was going to the pub afterwards. And why would I want to be a minder of a group who was a group of pioneers? But there was very few of us were pioneers at that point. So this one guy had this miserable face on him. We said, "So what's wrong?" He said, "Well, to be honest with you, I'd like a few beers." We said, "So would we." He said, "But you're not many pioneers around the group."
So did you just change the name then after that?
It took a while. It took some convincing. Some people didn't want to let go of it. But I don't know how it happened, but it kind of happened organically, really. And anyway, we stopped traveling after a while with the one act. We haven't traveled, I think, in the 90s, I think was the last time. And so we stopped. And then the Mount Mellick festival started as the Laois Festival, but became the Mount Mellick Drama Festival. So I think it kind of happened around the same time.
Yeah, and do you remember any of the adjudicators you came across back then when you were on the circuit?
I do. I came across quite a few, but one that was 6 enemy is the lovely Pat Buck, who we sadly lost recently. And Pat also adjudicated Mount Mellick in the Drama Festival, but one year I was out doing a play called Growing Pains. It's a simple story, really. It's about a man and wife, and they're telling stories about from when the child is born to when he's 16, and something happens when he's 16. They buy him a motorbike, and of course he's killed off the motorbike. So it's the story leading up to that, and it's very much a storytelling exercise where it starts with Mary, who I played, coming out and talking and saying, first line was 16 stitches, 16. That was my first line. And I did it in Prosperous with the group, and it was really nice. And Pat was adjudicating, and he actually gave me my first ever award, and it was for part of Mary, and it was really special because in Prosperous at that time, the one act, there was only one award for acting. There was no best actor, best actress, it was just best overall performance. And so I got it, and it was my first award, and I was absolutely thrilled. And about a weekend or 2 weekends after that, we were traveling again, same play, but to one of the Dublin festivals, and Pat was adjudicating there as well. And I thought, I have it in the bag. But when I walked in, there was hundreds of awards at this festival. I thought, going home with something. I went home with nothing. And first play, I shouldn't have done it because I went in there too cocky altogether. And so it was a lesson learned.
A lesson learned. No, Pat was a legend. He was a very encouraging man, and I felt
he was. He was, and he always had. He was a lovely, lovely man, and he was lovely as a mentor for us coming in as adjudicators as well. He always had an encouraging word and good advice, and he was the same as an adjudicator. He was never one put in. He just he had a lovely, lovely way of delivering adjudication.
yeah. So then it was you decided to go to UCD and study.
I did. I first went to Maynooth first. I did a diploma course. I think that got turned into an MA course now, but it wasn't a diploma course at the time. And that was around 92. And Paddy, I knew nothing. I had been on the stage, and in one of these Laois festivals, Tom Madden, who was running the course, was adjudicating. And he said to me, would you not consider going a bit further with your drama, doing a bit of study? And he told me about this course he was running. So I was a bit skeptical because I didn't really know an awful lot about theatre. I knew I liked to act, but I didn't know about a lot of plays. And anyway, I did it, but each week I'd go and there would be a discussion on a play, and it could be Juno and the Peacock, but I'd never heard of it. So I'd write down any plays I'd never heard of, I'd write it down, and I'd go and I'd buy that book because it was once every fortnight. And I'd buy that book, and in the fortnight, I'd read that play. And the next week, they're talking about a different play altogether, so I'd have to write it down again and go and buy the next play. But it's got me a great library of plays, I have to say. But I learned a very hard lesson there as well. I didn't know when to shut up. I didn't know when to stop pretending that you know something when you don't. And there was one time where I said a couple of things, and I'd seen people look at me, and I thought, oops, I said something wrong there. So I stop it there. Stop, Paul. Don't pretend. If you don't know it, you don't know it. It's all right to say you don't know. Stop it. So this particular day, I was talking to Tom, and he said to me, do you read much poetry, Paula? And I was going to say, oh yeah, I read a bit. I don't read poetry. I didn't read poetry. I don't really read poetry now either. And I said, oh yeah, I read a bit. Then I said, but not a lot, Tom. No. Have you ever read Patrick Kavanagh? And I said, yeah, I know that poem at Raglan Road. I'd never read it. I'd never read it at all, but I'd heard of it. And he said to me, oh, you know that they've made a song about that poem. And instead of just saying yes, and if I said, sing a line of it, and I sang, Raglan Road, and he just looked at me and he said, that's Ramblin' Road.
Ah, yeah. Well, that was a very valuable lesson. Yeah. Very good. Tom, of course, then when you were finished your degree, you went on then to he encouraged you to go on to UCD to do your masters.
Yeah, I did a 4-year degree course first, and then I did the master's course in 1 year. But funnily enough, the master's course before I finished my degree course, because the subjects, I was doing a module-based nighttime course, and the modules that I wanted to do, which was a module on film and a module on English literature, weren't available the year I wanted them. They're only available starting on module 1 the following year. So I asked the drama department, could I do my MA, because I'd finished drama as far as I could go in the degree.
Yeah.
And at first they said no, because you haven't finished your degree. As long as I finished my degree the year after, even if I got my MA, then I had to go back and finish my degree. So I actually got my degree the year before, but my master's the year before I got my degree. It's hard work, but I've made friends for life that I met in UCD, and it's great.
You're a massive fan of Michael Chekhov and the Chekhov technique and all that goes along with it. Can you give us talk a wee bit about that for us?
It was hard to just describe it in a very short space of time. But what he's trying to do is, he worked with Stanislavski as an actor for a while, And he didn't believe that you had to call upon your own emotions, emotions that you felt to find a character. He believed that you could find your character from the outside, and he's got through your imagination finding that character and he's got this wonderful psychological gesture, which is really too hard to describe in a couple of words, but it's about finding, it's the feeling inside your stomach, inside your gut, as if you're playing someone who's got this battle of emotions going through them, and you find how in your body that gesture is, and every time you find that feeling, that's the center core of your character, and every time you're acting, if you feel like your character's slipping away from you, you go back to that core. There's also other things, like you do beautiful movement exercises of floating and flying, or so you can think of straight away, if you think of an actor who floats onto the stage, like say Ophelia when she's going down picking out her rosemary for remembrance and all that, but she almost floats through it. And so it's about finding it from the outside. It's almost like putting on the coat of your character, and through lovely exercises that I find are just beautiful. And you put on the coat of that character, and you carry that character through. And there's times where that character might not be floating; they might be walking through sand, and it's about creating atmospheres. And like if you go into a house and even though the two people in there are really friendly to you, but by them there's something not quite right to you. Maybe they had a row before I got here, or something like this. That there's an atmosphere, and you can create those atmospheres. So it's about creating the atmosphere where your play is taking part, and how it changes throughout as play goes through it. It's very, very complicated to explain, but it's a wonderful technique.
And there was a check of society in Dublin. Then you were part of that as well.
I was a founder member of that. Yeah, I'm still there, yeah, they do. Well, they're not at the moment, obviously, but they put on short performances at times, and they do lots of different projects, lots of workshops, made up of some great people. And there's also Jörg Andres, who's here in Berlin actually, and he has the Michael Chekhov Academy in Berlin, and he teaches a teaching course over a year and a half. And he's like a guru. He's just wonderful man to work with and do workshops with.
Yeah, lots of interesting stuff there. When you were doing your MA, your thesis, I know a wee bit about this because I had a discussion with it about you one night. It wasn't over Zoom; it was over a pint. But you done your thesis on Marina Carr's Porsche Cochrane.
I did. I don't think it was the best thesis I've ever written, but it got me through. And it was about shedding a light on the darkness of Irish society, about the subjects that she discusses, about suicide, about incest, about all the different things. So it was but focusing mainly on Porsche Cochrane and incest, and about her father, all of that. So it was about about Marina Carr taking things that very often were hidden and shedding a light on them. That was what my thesis was about. But I wouldn't say go and rush to the library now and see if you can find it, but it was okay.
Would you be a big fan of Marina Carr as a writer because of the Midlands connection and all that? Would you be a big fan of Marina's writing?
I would be a very big fan of Marina's writing. She was actually a year ahead of me in school. We went to the same school. She went to St Mary's College in Mountmellick till Leavington, I believe. And but I didn't know her. I didn't know her then. I think her sister, who was a year below me, and I think I knew her. But so when I actually got reading her stuff, I didn't know that I was in school with her. It's only afterwards I put the connection together. But I do find her writing very, very interesting. I'm not a huge fan of one of her plays. I'm not going to say which one it is because I might have to adjudicate it sometime. But I like her style of writing, and I like her rhythm of writing, and yes, the rhythm of the Midlands dialect or accent, whatever you want to call it. I like it, but I also like the way she explores people, and then opens up these characters, whether they're good or they're bad, and she gives them all their flaws and explores them through theatre. I think, yeah, she's great.
Yeah, and I suppose Portia was definitely one of those characters that she showed us the flaws and I suppose the flaws in Irish society.
Yeah.
So Paula, you've directed lots of plays in English, but since you've moved to Germany, you've actually directed in German.
I have. I got involved with the local group here 2 years ago, and I played a very small part, a man, in one of the plays. But I kind of forgot where I was, and I went there with just first of all with the just the intention to watch and see what kind of stuff they did. And I said to the director, "Why are you not using this space, and why are you not putting them down there, and why are you not this?" And then he said to me, "This is our third rehearsal." And I, sorry, that's just, I'm really sorry, it's adjudicated coming out to me, I'm really sorry. And then he said, "Will you come back?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And he said, "Will you play a part?" And I said, so that's how I got into that group. And then at the end of that run, they asked me would I be interested in directing the next production, because the director himself also wanted to get back on the stage. And I said to him, "Yeah, but you know, my German's not really up to scratch that much." And he said to me, one of the cast said, "Well, we all understand quite a bit of English." And the then director said to me, "No, we prefer if you did it in German." So I said, "Okay, let me think about it." I came up with a few plays, and I wanted to do an Irish play, but I wanted to do one that wasn't necessarily Irish. So I thought The Importance of Being Earnest was a great choice. And we had a reason of it, and there's of course 9 characters in it. They had 11 people who were interested in doing it, and it because it's so long reading it the first time, they were all looking at me like, "Really? You're sure?" And I said, "Well, look, think about it. If you're not happy with it, we'll go away and we'll do something else." And they thought about it for, I'd say, less than a day, and they all came back and said, "Yeah, can you cast it?" So I said, "Yeah, here's my casting." So I cast it, and the difficulty with directing it was not so much that I didn't have the ideas, I couldn't express the ideas, because I'd known what I was doing when I went in. But you know yourself, and you have your kind of schedule, what you're going to look at, this scene and that scene or whatever. But then somebody does something on the stage, and it just spurs something. You get this something to think, "Oh, we could do this, this, and this." But I can't think quick enough that in English, out of my mouth, translate it into German, out of my mouth, I'd say it and talk, and I was like, and I couldn't get out what I wanted them to do. So it was pidgin. It was half English, half German at times. So it got a lot better as the time went on. And we did a lot of lovely workshops before. We have a nice warm up, and we did a bit of Michael Chekhov movements and stuff like that. So it worked very, very well. But unfortunately, COVID put an end to that as well. We had 2 performances only. I only saw the opening night. Then I was in Ireland for the festival, and they played one more night, and that was the end of it.
And the translation, did you translate the script?
Oh God, no.
From English to German, or
No. It's very, very readily available, and actually, I had a script myself for the first couple of rehearsals that I bought online, and it was English on one side and German on the other.
Okay.
But it wasn't the exact copy of the script they actually used in the long run, and the script that they used in the long run was cleverer than the one I had, and it was more closer to the English translation. But there's some lines that just don't translate as well. As the wit doesn't come across as clever as Oscar Wilde's wit in English as it does in German. But it was extremely good, and we were so sorry that it didn't happen, and we were hoping that it would go ahead again maybe this February, but it's not looking like it, because we're going in from tomorrow. We're going into a lockdown, a partial lockdown, kind of a curfew. Can't leave the house from 9 p.m. till 5 a.m. in the morning. So you can't go to rehearsal and finish at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Yeah. Whoever does that is right. So that had to be a brilliant experience, and unfortunately, due to COVID, you didn't get to put it on. I suppose as being an adjudicator, I'm going to ask you, what's the 4 or the 3 or 4 things that you look for in a play or in a production? First of all, you read the play, of course, previous to the festival, and then you sit down in the hall that night to adjudicate it. So what's the things that ticks the boxes for Paula Dempsey as an adjudicator?
Well, apart from the 4 categories you mean that we all know, just the acting, the direction, the presentation, and the dramatic achievement, and that 10-point dramatic achievement encapsulates a whole lot. First of all, it has to be well cast. I had conversations before, and you had conversation with Lurleen and TJ saying about comedies don't win the All Ireland, and I find that that's not necessarily true. And if it is true, it's often because it's not cast properly. Because you have somebody who could say that they're really fantastic, especially in farce. Farce is a lot more difficult to do, and people don't realise how difficult farce is to do. It's very, very physical. And if you don't cast it, every part has to be well cast. If you have one weak link in it, it lets the whole show down. So if you can't cast the play, I would say don't do the play. Don't, like, many directors say, oh, but I've always wanted to do that play, but if you can't cast it, why do it? You know, so that's one I would say. I would say truth is another thing. I have to completely believe that everybody on that stage believes in what they're doing, really wants to be there, loves what they're doing, and the truth of the character comes out and the love of the theatre comes out. And also, Paddy, you know, you go in sometimes and you have, like you said, you've read your script, but you might have a script that has absolutely no stage directions on it, and you don't know what's coming up. And that surprise element when you're watching something, you have no idea, because you have in your head how you might do it, but no stage directions there. You don't know how it's going to happen. And you sit down and somebody puts something in front of you, just makes you go, wow, that was fantastic. I would never have thought of that. That's great. But most important is it has to reach me on a guttural level. I have to either laugh, cry, go along with the romance of something, believe in it, really be excited by a production. And that's really what makes a play work.
Yeah. So that's loads, and I'm sure groups, you know, out there would be delighted to hear all them pointers. You've our last confined finals was the 2019 confined finals, hosted by Doonbeg Drama Festival down there in West Clare. It was a finals, unfortunately, due to work commitments and stuff. I didn't get to myself, but I believe by all rumours had it was a fantastic week of confined drama.
It was a fantastic week, and it was hosted superbly by Doonbeg. They did a great job, from the dinner in the big marquee out of the hotel to the final night. Everything was just perfectly handled. Noreen and Rita and all of them, they were all fantastic. The committee was fantastic. The groups themselves were really great. Of course, it's a different kettle of fish in the final, is that you don't give a private adjudication after you get up and you do your public adjudication. And that felt a little bit strange, that you're not going in to discuss it. But at the same time, it's kind of like, what's the point that we're finished now? This is our last festival. But all the groups were great. We had, of course, the strange situation of having 2 doubles. We had 2 fives and we had 2 beauty queens. So it was, that was different. But it was, I have to say, a fantastic week. And God, what I'd give to back there again now. Just sitting watching 8 nights of theatre. Oh, I would love it. 9 nights, wasn't it?
Yeah, 9 nights.
Yeah, 9 nights. Yeah, of theatre. And of course, you know, Doonbeg is beautiful, and went around all the lovely scenery. Had lots of friends and support coming down, even though you didn't make it yourself, buddy. The crowd from Ross were down, and Imelda and Jeff, and you know, it was a fantastic week, and I'd love to be there now.
Yeah, wouldn't we all? Great to catch up. It's great to catch up with the drama family. Even on the first night of our conversations, you know, it was great just to see people commenting from where they are, where they're from. You know, just to make that contact, because the amateur drama movement is like a big family, you know. And although sometimes you don't see somebody for a whole season, and then you sit down with them again, and you're back to where you started the year before, you know, which is pretty remarkable about it.
And we should have been having Ennis this weekend as well, or we should be, you know.
Yeah, we should have been heading for the one act finals in Ennis. But you look at, like, I suppose here's hoping now for 2021. The vaccine is coming hopefully in January, and hopefully we'll get out of this time. Paula, thank you very, very much for joining us on Lockdown Conversations, episode 5. It's been a pleasure to have you, and hopefully we'll see you back over here in Ireland adjudicating. Hopefully for 2021 one acts, we'll see you somewhere on a stage giving your opinion. That's it for this week, folks. Next week we have the winner of the 2014 Confined Clare Galway Cup. The director was Michael Johnson. He's going to be on with us. Michael is also the chairman of the ADCI at the moment, and he's going to be with us for the last in the series of the conversations. Just before I go, I'd like to congratulate, we had our AGM last Sunday, and all festivals, we had it over Zoom, and all festivals were present. And I'd just like to congratulate our new PRO, who is Lorna Doran McAvoy from Carnew Festival. And we want to, which is South Wicklow, if you're looking up the festivals. I want to wish Lorna all the very best in our years going forward as the PRO, and the very best of luck to her. Right, folks, that's it.
Can I just say one more thing, Paddy?
Yeah.
Can I just say, coming from Mount Mellick, can I just say that I think they were fabulous to because all the festivals had to go forward, and so they've had to miss out on the confined finals. So it's great that they were generous and let the people of Ballyshannon have it, and that they look forward to being in Mount Mellick for 2023, I think. Yeah,
that'll be right. Yeah, all COVID dependent. So that's it. That's it, folks, for episode 5. Thank you very, very much to Paula for tonight, and all the other guests I had on previously. As we say, we'll be back next week at 8 o'clock live on the ADCI Facebook page for episode 6 and the final in the series. Thank you very much, folks.